tension hits the heart of British power as Prime Minister Keir Starmer and King Charles find themselves at the centre of a shocking political clash. With the UK election only days away, secret meetings, sharp disagreements and rising public pressure have pushed the nation into uncertainty. What really happened behind closed doors? And what does it mean for the future of Britain? For months, the political atmosphere in the United Kingdom seemed unusually calm. The government under Keir Starmer had been working steadily through a long list of policies: healthcare reform, cost of living support and a renewed push for green energy. King Charles, meanwhile, was quietly performing his royal duties, focusing on public service, charity visits and environmental awareness. Nothing suggested that the two most watched figures in Britain were heading toward a major disagreement. Yet deep inside Whitehall and Buckingham Palace, something had been building. Civil servants whispered of unusual meetings, advisors noted tense phone calls. Royal correspondents reported that the king had shown rare signs of visible frustration during a recent engagement, and within the government, ministers noticed that the Prime Minister was becoming unusually guarded about certain decisions. As the election approached, pressure grew on both sides. Keir Starmer was preparing for one of the most important campaigns of his career, determined to secure another term and prove he could deliver long-term stability. His team worked day and night crafting policies meant to appeal to struggling families, young voters and business leaders. Every speech mattered, every appearance counted. At the same time, King Charles faced his own challenges. His health and schedule had been the subject of constant press speculation. Despite this, he remained committed to his constitutional role, staying neutral, staying steady, and staying above politics. But he also had firm view on issues such as the environment, sustainable agriculture, and the responsibilities of modern Britain. While he never interfered directly in policy, he had always believed in quietly guiding the nation with wisdom and balance. Then came the moment that changed everything. According to insiders, a private meeting was arranged between the King and the Prime Minister, something routine on the surface but unusually urgent in tone. No agenda was shared publicly. No details leaked for several days, but behind those palace doors, they reportedly discussed a new government proposal linked to environmental planning and land use policy, one that King Charles was deeply concerned about. The disagreement was not loud, dramatic, or disrespectful. It was subtle, but powerful. The king raised his concerns calmly. Starmer defended the policy firmly. Neither shifted position. By the end of the meeting, the atmosphere had changed. What began as a quiet conversation soon became the most talked about rumour in Westminster. When the press caught wind of the tension, headlines exploded across the UK. Rift between PM and monarch. Starmer and King Charles in clash over new policy. Election shock, royal concerns reach Downing Street. Suddenly, what had been a private discussion became the biggest political story in Britain. Commentators debated the constitutional boundaries. Supporters on both sides began taking positions. Social media erupted with theories, jokes and fears about what the clash meant for the election. And as the country tried to make sense of it, both the Prime Minister's office and Buckingham Palace remained silent. No official statements, no explanations, just uncertainty and the sense that something unprecedented was unfolding. This was not just politics, it was not just tradition, it was a quiet collision between the worlds of power and monarchy. At the exact moment Britain needed calm the most. The question on everyone's mind was simple: if this was only the beginning, what would happen next? In the days that followed, the story only grew larger, spreading across the country like a spark in dry grass. Journalists camped outside Downing Street, scanning every expression on the faces of ministers as they hurried past at Buckingham Palace. Reporters watched every movement of royal staff, hoping for even the smallest hint of what the king might be thinking. But the silence from both sides became its own message. People began to wonder if the disagreement was more serious than anyone first believed. Rumours suggested more meetings had taken place, each ending with the same quiet tension. Some said the king felt the government was moving too fast. Others claimed the Prime Minister thought the monarchy was stepping beyond its usual boundaries. No one knew the truth, But the uncertainty gripped the nation tightly. As the election campaign officially began, the clash cast a long shadow over every speech and interview. Keir Starmer tried to focus on his message to voters. He spoke about rebuilding trust, protecting the economy, and easing the pressure on households facing rising bills. But every time he stepped in front of a camera, the questions returned to the same topic. Did the king oppose your policy? Is there a constitutional crisis? Has the relationship between the Crown and the government broken down? Starmer kept his answers measured and brief, insisting that he had full respect for the king and that all conversations remained private. But the firmness in his voice suggested the issue still weighed heavily on him. Meanwhile, King Charles continued his public duties with his usual calm presence. Yet those who observed closely noticed small changes. He seemed more serious during engagements, more thoughtful when addressing the public. On one occasion, while speaking about environmental protection, he paused longer than usual, as if choosing his words with exceptional care. People watching at home wondered whether he was sending a message or simply doing his best to avoid adding fuel to the growing fire. Palace aides refused to comment, repeating the familiar line that the monarch remained politically neutral. But the public was not convinced. With so little information available, imagination began to fill the gaps. The situation soon reached ordinary households across the UK in cafes, buses, workplaces and living rooms. People debated what they believed was happening. Some argued the king was right to express concerns, especially if he feared long-term damage to the environment or rural communities. Others felt the Prime Minister had every right to push forward with policies chosen by elected representatives. A few worried the clash could disturb the careful balance that had kept British governments stable for generations. It became more than news. It became a national conversation about power, tradition, and the future direction of the country. Political opponents seized the moment, using the tension to question Starmer's leadership. They suggested he was losing control, that he was out of step with public sentiment, or that he had failed to manage relationships at the highest level of the state. Some even hinted that the king's concerns reflected wider dissatisfaction within the nation. Starmer's supporters pushed back, accusing rivals of exploiting a sensitive issue for their own gain. They insisted the Prime Minister was simply doing what leaders must, making hard decisions in difficult times. But the damage to the public mood was already visible. As the election drew nearer, attention shifted from the clash itself to what it revealed about the challenges ahead. Commentators warned that Britain was entering a new era where old expectations could no longer be taken for granted. The country was dealing with economic strain, environmental pressures, and social division. A disagreement between the monarch and the Prime Minister, even a private one, seemed to symbolise the deeper uncertainties beneath the surface. It was as if the nation had been holding its breath for years, and now the slightest spark could cause everything to shift. Yet through all the noise, one truth stood out. No one really knew how far the clash had gone or what the final impact would be. The election was approaching fast and the country was waiting, watching and wondering, would the issue fade quietly or would it erupt into something larger? Would unity return or would the rift widen? The next steps from both sides would decide not only the outcome of the election, but the future tone of the United Kingdom itself.